All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful and, honestly, most misunderstood emotions out there: anger. We're going to break down what it really is, how it actually works in your body and your brain, and most importantly, how you can finally get a handle on it. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're having a perfectly good day, and then bam, someone says one little thing, one sharp comment, and it just lands wrong. Suddenly, your whole mood, your whole day, it's just shot. And you spend hours just replaying that moment in your head. Well, it turns out there's a real scientific reason why that feeling sticks around like it does. And, understanding it is the very first step to taking back control. It all comes down to a really surprising biological fact about your brain. Now, I know this one can be a little tough to swallow. We feel like anger just happens to us, Like it's some automatic reflex we have no control over. But here's the thing. The biggest myth about anger is that it's out of our hands. The real power comes when you realize that ultimately staying angry is a choice. So get this. Neuroscientists have found that when something triggers an emotional response, your brain releases a flood of chemicals. But, and this is the amazing part, the purely physical chemical reaction in your body only lasts for about 90 seconds. That's it. After a minute and a half, those chemicals are totally flushed out of your system. And that, right there, is the million-dollar question. If the actual chemical part is over so fast, why can we stay absolutely furious for an entire afternoon, or even for days on end? What is going on? The answer? It's us. We're the ones who keep the fire going. We replay the scene, we retell ourselves the story of what happened, we reimagine the whole conversation. And every single time we do that, guess what? We trigger a fresh batch of those anger chemicals, starting that 90-second clock all over again. We are literally choosing to refuel the anger again and again. Okay, so if we're the ones keeping it going, that's actually good news, because it means we also have the power to stop it. And that brings us to our next big idea. It's time to find your own internal remote control. For most of our lives, we operate under this illusion that other people have the power to make us angry. It feels like they have our remote control, and they can just walk up and push our buttons whenever they want. But the reality is, they don't. The real power isn't in what happens to you, it's in how you choose to react. You're the one holding the remote. I love this idea. When something happens, that's the stimulus, there's this tiny little moment, this pause before we react. That's the response. That little space, that is everything. That's where your freedom lives. People who have mastered their emotions have simply learned how to stretch that space out just long enough to choose a calm, conscious response instead of a knee-jerk, angry one. So, how do you actually use that space? You practice becoming an observer of your own feelings. Instead of getting swept up in the emotional storm, you just watch it. Notice your heart beating a little faster. Feel your face get hot. But you do it without judgment. You just acknowledge it. Maybe say to yourself, okay, I am feeling anger right now. But that's so different from saying I am angry. You are not the storm. You're just the sky that the storm is passing through. Here is a fantastic mental trick. Instead of seeing difficult people as just difficult, what if you saw them as your personal trainers for your emotional gym? Seriously, that annoying coworker, they're giving you a master class in patience. That family member who drives you crazy, they're teaching you how to set boundaries. This little shift turns every frustrating moment into a chance to get stronger. Now, as you start observing your anger, you might notice something really interesting. A lot of the time, anger isn't even the real emotion you're feeling. More often than not, it's just playing the role of a big, tough security guard. Think about it like that. Anger stands at the door. It looks intimidating, it puffs out its chest, but its whole job is to protect something way more vulnerable, way more sensitive on the inside. So the next time you feel that flash of anger, just ask yourself this question. And odds are, this is what you're going to find hiding behind that security guard. When someone criticizes your work, that flash of anger is probably just a cover for feeling hurt or disrespected. When a friend lets you down, the anger might be masking a deeper fear that you're not important to them. Anger is just the bodyguard for these much softer emotions. And this is so crucial because shouting and acting angry, that just builds walls. It pushes people away. But if you can get past the guard and express the real emotion underneath, if you can say, I felt really hurt when you said that, instead of just yelling, well, that's when you can actually solve the problem and build a real connection. To do that, though, you have to know your own emotional territory. We all have them, these emotional landmines. They're your personal triggers. For some people, it's feeling ignored. For others, it's being told what to do. The first step is just awareness, knowing where your landmines are buried, so you're not so surprised when you step on one. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the internal mindset shift. Now, let's get into some practical strategies for dealing with the outer world. The actual challenging people and situations you face every day. Boundaries are so important, but we often get them wrong. Good boundaries aren't walls you build to keep people out. They're more like your skin. They let the good stuff in, but they protect you from the harmful stuff. It's about calmly saying something like, I really want to talk about this, but I can't when there's yelling. Let's take a break and talk when we're both calm. See, it's not an attack, it's just protecting your own peace. And you know what? Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is just walk away for a bit. Now, there's a huge difference between running away from a fight and taking a strategic retreat. A retreat is a sign of wisdom. It's recognizing, hey, this is too heated right now, and giving yourself the space to cool down so the logical part of your brain can get back in the driver's seat. I think this metaphor is just perfect, especially for those of us who tend to get sucked into other people's problems. A lifeguard doesn't save someone by jumping in and drowning with them. They have to stay afloat to be of any help at all. You have to protect your own energy first. You have to stay afloat so you're actually in a position to help someone else without getting pulled under yourself. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. The science, the mindset shifts, the real-world strategies. But this last piece, this is the most important part of the whole thing. Because just knowing all this stuff, it won't change a thing. You could listen to this a dozen times, but nothing in your life will actually transform until you start putting these ideas into practice. Real change only comes from doing, not just knowing. So here is my challenge to you. Don't try to do everything at once. You'll just get overwhelmed. Instead, just pick one thing. Just one. Maybe this week, you practice noticing that 90-second window. Or maybe you'll just focus on observing your emotions like the weather. Or maybe you'll try setting one small, clear boundary. Just pick one and really commit to it for 7 days. So what's it going to be? The power is totally in your hands. You've got the remote control. Which button are you going to press this week to start mastering your emotions and, honestly, changing your life?